I'm Ashley Thompson, 28, standing in the pouring rain outside the Grand Luxe Hotel Manhattan. Through the gleaming windows, I can see my family celebrating without me. The security guards just refused me entry to my parents' anniversary party on family orders. My brother smirked from the lobby. They think I'm a failure who couldn't afford a room here. If only they knew I own not just this hotel, but the entire Luxe chain. Tonight, 7 years of secrets end. Before I start my story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been underestimated by family. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, where appearances meant everything to my family. My parents, Diana and James Thompson, worked in corporate jobs they hated but never left because of the status they provided. My older brother Ethan was the golden child, captain of the debate team, straight-A student, and according to my parents, destined for greatness. I was the afterthought, the dreamer, the one who never quite fit their narrow definition of success. The only person who ever truly saw me was my grandmother Evelyn. While my parents pushed me toward stable, conventional paths, Grandma Evelyn encouraged my entrepreneurial spirit. When I was 10, she helped me set up my first business, a neighborhood lemonade stand that I quickly expanded to 3 locations by recruiting friends. When I was 12, she taught me about investing by helping me buy my first stocks with my birthday money. Ashley, she would say, some people build their lives around climbing ladders. You're meant to build your own ladder. My parents dismissed these ventures as cute hobbies, and my brother Ethan would roll his eyes whenever Grandma Evelyn praised my business sense. Playing store isn't a career plan, my mother would say during our tense family dinners. My father would nod in agreement, adding, "You need to focus on practical skills, Ashley. Not everyone can be exceptional. There's nothing wrong with being average." Those words cut deep, especially during my teenage years. While my friends' parents proudly displayed their achievements, mine seemed determined to lower my expectations for myself. When I won the state Young Entrepreneurs competition at 16, my parents skipped the ceremony for Ethan's college campus tour. "This business stuff is fine for now," my mother said, "but you'll need something to fall back on." Grandma Evelyn was there, though. She was always there, with her unwavering belief in my potential. During our Sunday afternoon tea sessions, she would share stories about her own life, how she had wanted to start a business in the 1950s but had been held back by the expectations placed on women of her generation. "You're living my dream," she told me once, her eyes shining with tears. "Promise me you won't let anyone clip your wings." I promised her, but keeping that promise became increasingly difficult as I entered college. I enrolled in business school against my parents' wishes. They had wanted me to pursue education or nursing, suitable careers for a young woman. Every holiday break became a battleground of passive-aggressive comments and outright criticism. My father would interrogate me about job security, benefits packages, and retirement plans as if I were already failing at a career I hadn't even started. Then came the blow that changed everything. During my junior year of college, Grandma Evelyn passed away after a brief illness. I was devastated. She had been my anchor, my champion, my true north in a family that never seemed to see me clearly. At the reading of her will, I received an envelope containing $50,000, her entire life savings. The note inside simply read, "Build your ladder, Ashley. I'll be watching from above." My parents and Ethan were visibly disappointed that Grandma had left her money to me instead of dividing it equally. "She should have known better than to give that much money to someone so impractical," my mother said, not bothering to lower her voice. "It'll be gone within a year. If you were smart, you'd put it toward a down payment on a sensible condo," my father advised. Ethan was more direct. "Don't come asking for loans when you've blown through Grandma's money on whatever harebrained scheme you're cooking up." Their lack of faith was nothing new, but something shifted in me that day. Standing in the lawyer's office, clutching Grandma Evelyn's final gift, I made a decision. I would use this money to build something extraordinary, and I would do it far away from their discouraging voices. 2 weeks after graduation, I packed 2 suitcases and bought a one-way ticket to New York City. My family assumed I was going through a phase, that I'd come crawling back when reality hit. My mother's parting words still ring in my ears: when this fantasy fails, your room will be waiting. I didn't tell them my plans. I didn't tell them anything. I simply left, determined to honor Grandma Evelyn's belief in me, even if it meant cutting ties with those who couldn't share that belief. As the train pulled away from Boston, I made another promise to myself: I wouldn't return until I had built something undeniable, something so successful that even my family couldn't diminish it. Little did I know that the next 7 years would transform me from the family disappointment to the secret owner of one of the most prestigious hotel chains in the country, the very chain my family would one day try to shut me out of. New York City wasn't the immediate launchpad to success I had naively imagined. My first apartment was a 5th-floor walk-up in Brooklyn with unreliable heating and a roommate who worked night shifts as a bartender. I took a job as a front desk clerk at a boutique hotel in Soho, earning barely enough to cover rent and ramen noodles. But unlike my corporate-locked parents, I saw this position as a first step rather than a final destination. I worked extra shifts, volunteered for the tasks no one else wanted, and observed everything. How guests interacted with staff. What made them return. Which amenities they used and which they ignored. I kept a journal of observations and ideas, filling page after page with insights that would later become the foundation of my business model. 3 months into my job, I encountered Samantha Reeves. She checked in late one night, exhausted from a delayed flight, yet she still took the time to ask my name and thank me for my help. The next morning, she requested to speak with me. "You're wasted at that front desk," she said bluntly over coffee in the hotel lounge. "I watched you handle that obnoxious couple last night. You've got a gift for this industry." I learned that Samantha was a hotel industry veteran who had started as a housekeeper and worked her way up to managing director of a respected chain before breaking off to consult. When I shared some of my observations from my journal, her eyes lit up. "You see things others miss," she said. "I could use someone like you on my consulting team." The job with Samantha paid twice my front desk salary and provided an education no business school could match. We traveled to hotels across the country, evaluating operations and recommending improvements. I absorbed everything: staff management, customer service psychology, profit margin optimization, brand development. Samantha became my mentor, pushing me to think bigger while teaching me the nuts and bolts of the industry. "Hotels aren't just places to sleep," she would say. "They're theaters where guests star in their own stories. Your job is to make those stories memorable." After 2 years with Samantha, I had saved most of my salary and still had Grandma Evelyn's $50,000 untouched in a high-yield account. I was ready for the next step. Over dinner one night, I shared my vision with Samantha: a boutique hotel chain that combined luxury service with authentic local experiences, something missing in the homogenized corporate hotels dominating the market. "You'll need a partner with real estate experience," Samantha said. "Someone who understands property values and has connections with contractors." She introduced me to Zachary Palmer, a developer known for restoring historic buildings. Zachary was initially skeptical of my age and limited capital, but my detailed business plan won him over. "Most people come to me with vague ideas and expect my money to make them real," he said after reviewing my projections. "You've done the work. I'm in." Together with Samantha's guidance, we identified our first property. A neglected Art Deco building in Philadelphia with good bones and a desperate seller. Using Grandma Evelyn's money as the down payment and Zachary's connections to secure favorable financing, we purchased the property for much less than market value. The renovation nearly broke me. Contractors quit, budgets exploded, permits were delayed. I slept on a cot in what would eventually become the manager's office, working 18-hour days and questioning my sanity. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if my family had been right all along. But 9 months later, the Thompson Heritage Philadelphia opened its doors. I had named the hotel in honor of Grandma Evelyn's maiden name, a private tribute she would have appreciated. With its blend of historic charm and modern luxury, the hotel was an immediate hit with business travelers and tourists alike. Zachary's connections helped secure crucial early bookings, and Samantha's industry friends provided glowing reviews. Within 6 months, we were operating at 85% capacity, unheard of for a new property. By the end of the first year, we had recouped our initial investment and were scouting locations for a second hotel. The Thompson Heritage Boston opened 18 months later, deliberately positioned in the upscale Back Bay neighborhood where my parents and brother would be likely to notice it, though they never connected the brand to me. I hadn't spoken to them since leaving, and they had made no effort to reach out. Their silence fueled my determination. Our third property in Chicago solidified our reputation as an emerging luxury brand. Travel magazines featured our unique approach to hospitality, and industry awards followed. I was careful to stay out of photographs, letting Zachary be the public face of our success while I focused on operations and expansion. Then came the opportunity that would change everything. Luxe Chain Hotels, a once prestigious brand with 20 properties across the country, was failing under mismanagement. Their occupancy rates had plummeted, and their reputation was in tatters. The parent company wanted to offload the entire chain at a fraction of its worth. It was a massive risk. The Luxe properties needed extensive renovations and complete culture change. Zachary thought I was crazy to even consider it. "We're successful because we're small and nimble," he argued. "This could sink everything we've built." But I saw the potential beneath the faded glamour. These were landmark properties in prime locations, assets that would take decades to acquire individually. With Samantha's help, I created a holding company called Phoenix Hospitality Group and secured backing from impressed investors who had watched our success with Thompson Heritage. I bought out Zachary's stake in our original company, giving him a generous profit while I retained full control of Thompson Heritage. Then Phoenix Hospitality Group acquired Luxe Chain Hotels in a deal that business magazines called the hospitality coup of the decade. The turnaround was brutal. I lived out of suitcases for 2 years, moving from property to property, replacing management, retraining staff, and overseeing renovations. I worked so hard I nearly collapsed from exhaustion twice. But the results spoke for themselves. Within 3 years, the rebranded Luxe properties were outperforming their glory days, with our flagship Manhattan location becoming the crown jewel. Through clever corporate structuring suggested by my legal team, my name appeared nowhere in the public records. Phoenix Hospitality Group was owned by a series of LLCs, which were in turn owned by a private trust one controlled. To the outside world, I was merely a successful hotel executive, not the owner of a hospitality empire worth over $300 million. I had built it all while honoring Grandma Evelyn's philosophy: treat employees with respect, create authentic experiences for guests, and never compromise quality for quick profits. Her portrait hung in my private office, and sometimes late at night, I'd tell her about our latest achievements, imagining her proud smile. 7 years after leaving Boston with nothing but 2 suitcases and a promise, I had transformed Grandma's $50,000 into an empire. I had proved my family wrong in every possible way, yet they knew nothing about it. I had no intention of ever revealing myself to them until the email from Ethan arrived. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning as I was reviewing quarterly projections in my Manhattan penthouse office. I nearly deleted it as spam. It had been so long since I'd seen my brother's name in my inbox. The subject line read: "Family reunion, Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary." My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won out. I opened it. "Ashley. Hope this finds you well. It's been a while. Mom and Dad are celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary next month, and we're planning a family gathering at the Luxe Hotel in Manhattan. Fancy, right? Everyone's been asking about you, and it wouldn't be complete without you there. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, and maybe you're still holding on to some stuff from the past, but it's time to let that go. Family is family. If you're still in New York, are you, or wherever life has taken you, we'd like you to join us. May 15th to 17th. Let me know if you need help with arrangements or anything else. I know the hospitality industry can be tough, especially these days. Ethan." I read it 3 times, noting every patronizing phrase, every subtle dig. "If you need help with arrangements," as if I couldn't afford a hotel room. The hospitality industry can be tough. His assumption that I was still working entry-level jobs. The irony that they had chosen my hotel for their celebration without having any idea was almost too perfect. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The Luxe Hotel was visible from where I stood, its iconic Art Deco spire jutting proudly into the sky. My hotel. The one they had chosen for their special occasion. My first instinct was to ignore the invitation entirely. I had cut ties with my family for good reasons. They had never believed in me, never supported my dreams. Why should I subject myself to their judgment again? I had built my life without them, and it was a good life, fulfilling, successful, surrounded by people who respected me. But something else tugged at me, curiosity, perhaps. Or maybe the desire to finally be seen for who I truly was. What would it be like to watch their faces when they realized the truth? Would they be proud? Embarrassed? Would they try to take credit somehow for my success? I called Natalie, my best friend since college and the one person who knew the full extent of my success and my family history. They have no idea, do they? She asked after I read her the email. Not a clue, I confirmed. Ethan still thinks I'm probably waiting tables or working the front desk somewhere. So what are you going to do? Show up in your private helicopter and blow their minds? I laughed. Tempting, but no. I'm thinking something more subtle. Girl, there is nothing subtle about owning the hotel your estranged family is staying in. True. But I don't have to reveal that right away. I could just observe. See how they act, what they say about me when they think I'm still struggling. Natalie was quiet for a moment. That sounds like torture. Are you sure you want to put yourself through that? It was a fair question. Was I setting myself up for more hurt? Had I secretly been waiting for an opportunity like this, a chance to prove my worth to the people who had dismissed me? I think I need this, I said finally. Not for them, but for me. To close that chapter completely. Then do it. But promise me you won't let them make you feel small again. You're Ashley Thompson, hotel queen. You eat corporate executives for breakfast. I promise, I said, smiling despite my anxiety. Besides, I own the building. I can always have them escorted out if things go south. After hanging up, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking. If I attended, how should I play it? Should I arrive as the successful business owner I was, or let them believe their assumptions about my failure a little longer? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wanted to see their true colors one last time. I wanted to know if 7 years had changed anything about how they saw me. If I arrived flaunting my success, I'd never know how they really felt. I decided to attend without revealing my position. I would dress simply, arrive without fanfare, and observe how they treated me when they thought I was still the family disappointment. Then, when the moment was right, the truth would come out. I drafted a brief reply to Ethan. I'll be there. Don't worry about arrangements, I can take care of myself. Looking forward to seeing everyone. Ashley. As I hit send, a mix of emotions swirled through me, anxiety, determination, and a strange sense of destiny. For years, I had been building my success in the shadow of their doubt. Now I was inviting that shadow back into my life, but this time, I controlled the light. I spent the next few weeks preparing myself emotionally for the reunion. I worked with my therapist on setting boundaries and managing expectations. I knew my family hadn't suddenly transformed into supportive, loving people. I knew seeing them might reawaken old wounds. But I also knew I wasn't the same insecure young woman who had fled Boston 7 years ago. As the date approached, I found myself increasingly nervous. Would they recognize the confidence I'd gained? Would they sense the changes in me? Or would they see only what they expected to see? The family failure, the disappointment, the one who never measured up? There was only one way to find out. May 15th arrived with perfect spring weather. I deliberately chose a simple outfit, dark jeans, a plain white blouse, and minimal jewelry. My usual driver offered to take me to the hotel, but I opted for a taxi instead. The less conspicuous my arrival, the better. As the taxi pulled up to the Luxe Manhattan, I felt a strange sensation. I had entered this building hundreds of times as its owner, greeted with deference by staff who knew exactly who I was. Today, I would walk in as a guest, and more specifically, as the black sheep of the Thompson family. I paid the driver and took a deep breath before approaching the entrance. The doorman, Julian, was new. He had started just 2 weeks ago. He wouldn't recognize me, which was perfect for my plan. "Good afternoon, welcome to the Luxe," he said automatically. I smiled and stepped into the familiar lobby with its soaring ceilings and Art Deco details. I had personally overseen the restoration of the original chandelier that now cast a warm glow over the marble floors. This was my creation, my vision brought to life, yet today I was a stranger in my own domain. I spotted my family immediately. They were clustered near the check-in desk, my mother Diana in an expensive-looking blue dress, my father James in a blazer and khakis, and Ethan in what I recognized as a custom-tailored suit. With them were aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't seen in years. Ethan saw me first. His smile faltered slightly as he took in my simple appearance. I could read his thoughts as clearly as if he'd spoken them aloud. Still no sense of occasion. Still doesn't make an effort. "Ashley," he called, waving me over with the confident gesture of someone who believed they were doing me a favor by acknowledging my existence. As I approached, I noticed my mother's eyes widen slightly in disapproval. She reached up to smooth her perfectly coiffed hair, a nervous habit she had always had when embarrassed. "You made it," she said, her tone suggesting surprise that I had managed even this simple task. "We were just checking in. The rates here are outrageous, but Ethan insisted on the best for the anniversary." "Hello, Mom." "Dad," I said, keeping my voice even. "It's been a while." My father gave me an awkward side hug. "You look healthy," he said, which had always been his code for "you could stand to lose a few pounds." Ethan stepped forward, all magnanimous smiles. "I've got everyone's room squared away. Premium suites for Mom and Dad, of course, and the rest of us in deluxe rooms with city views." He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "I had to pull some strings through work connections to get this place. Very exclusive." I bit back a smile. If he only knew. "Where are you staying these days, Ashley?" my Aunt Patricia asked, her voice dripping with the same faux concern I remembered from childhood. "Still in New York?" Before I could answer, my mother jumped in. "Ashley's been bouncing around, haven't you, dear? So adventurous, never settling in one place too long." I hadn't told her anything about my life in 7 years. She was making assumptions and presenting them as facts, another familiar pattern. "I live in Manhattan," I said simply. "Well, we've arranged for you to stay here with us," Ethan said with the air of someone bestowing a great gift. Though there was a bit of confusion with the reservations. My cousin Heather, who had always been kinder than the rest, looked uncomfortable. "They didn't book a room for you originally," she said quietly. "They added it last minute." Ethan shot her an annoyed look. "It was a simple oversight. All fixed now." I nodded, unsurprised. "Thank you for including me." We moved toward the check-in desk, where the front desk manager, David, was handling our group. I had promoted David myself last year, impressed with his attention to detail and guest relations skills. I saw the moment of panic in his eyes when he recognized me approaching with my family. I gave him a subtle shake of my head, our prearranged signal that I was incognito. "Thompson party," Ethan announced importantly. "We should be all set. 8 rooms, including the presidential suite for my parents." David nodded professionally. "Yes, Mr. Thompson, we have your reservations." If I could just see IDs from each guest as they check in. My family members lined up, each receiving their key cards with excited chatter about the hotel's luxury. When my turn came, David looked down at his computer with a carefully arranged frown. "I'm sorry, it seems there's a problem with one of the reservations," he said. "Ms. Ashley Thompson?" I'm not seeing a room assigned. Ethan stepped forward, irritation crossing his features. That's not possible. I added her myself. Check again. David tapped at his keyboard. I do see a note about an additional guest, but it appears the room was never confirmed. With our current occupancy, I'm afraid we don't have any rooms available. My mother sighed dramatically. This is why you confirm these things, Ethan. Now what are we supposed to do? It's fine, I said. I can find somewhere else to stay. Nonsense, my father said, though his tone suggested it was very much a nuisance. She can share with cousin Jessica. Jessica, who had always made it clear she found me embarrassing, looked horrified. My room only has one bed, Uncle James. Well, she can't stay with us in the presidential suite, my mother said. There's barely enough closet space for my things as it is. I stood there, listening to them discuss my sleeping arrangements as if I were a piece of inconvenient luggage rather than a family member they hadn't seen in 7 years. No one asked what I wanted. No one expressed genuine regret at the situation. They were simply annoyed at the disruption to their perfect weekend. As their debate continued, a light rain began to fall outside. Through the lobby windows, I could see guests hurrying in with umbrellas. My family remained oblivious to my growing discomfort. Perhaps it's best if Ashley finds other accommodations, my father finally said. The hotel is clearly full, and we have the welcome dinner in 2 hours. I'm sure there are more affordable options nearby, my mother added with a thin smile. Something more suited to your situation. And there it was. The confirmation that in their eyes, I was still the failure, the one who couldn't possibly afford to stay at the Luxe, the one whose situation meant budget motels and financial struggles. We can send a car for you when it's time for dinner, Ethan offered, his generosity hollow. Before I could respond, my Uncle Herbert loudly announced, we should head up and freshen up before dinner. Ashley can sort herself out. As they gathered their luggage and room keys, David looked at me apologetically, playing his role perfectly. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience, Ms. Thompson. It's not your fault, I said, loud enough for my family to hear. Some things never change. My mother frowned. There's no need for that attitude, Ashley. We're trying to help. Are you? I asked quietly. Because it seems like you're trying to remove an embarrassment before anyone notices. The lobby fell silent. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Now, Ashley, that's not fair. We're celebrating a milestone here, Anne. And I'm clearly not part of it, I finished for him. Don't worry, I understand. I always have. Ethan stepped forward, his expression hardening. If you're going to make a scene, maybe it is better if you don't attend at all. This weekend is about Mom and Dad, not your grievances. I looked at each of their faces, my mother's disapproval, my father's discomfort, Ethan's superiority, my extended family's mix of embarrassment and morbid curiosity. 7 years apart, and nothing had changed. I was still the problem, the disappointment, the one who didn't fit. You're right, I said finally. This isn't about me. Enjoy your weekend. I turned and walked out of the lobby, feeling their eyes on my back. Once outside, the light rain had transformed into a downpour. I stood under the awning, watching guests rush past with luggage, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. How many times in my life had I been left standing outside while my family moved on without me? The doorman approached with concern. Can I call you a taxi, miss? I shook my head, tears mixing with raindrops on my face. No, thank you. I stepped out into the rain, not caring that my clothes were getting soaked. I needed to feel something other than the hollow ache in my chest. I had built an empire, transformed an industry, become more successful than anyone in my family could imagine, yet standing in front of them, I had reverted to the insecure girl I'd been 7 years ago. I flagged down a passing taxi and climbed in, giving the driver my home address. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back at the Luxe, my hotel, my achievement, the physical manifestation of everything I had accomplished. And my family had just thrown me out of it. The irony would have been amusing if it wasn't so painful. Back in my penthouse apartment, I peeled off my wet clothes and stood under a hot shower, letting the water wash away my tears. I had expected judgment, condescension, even subtle cruelty. But to be so quickly dismissed, so easily excluded, it cut deeper than I had anticipated. I was toweling off my hair when my phone rang. It was Kimberly, my executive assistant. "Ashley? David just called from the Luxe. He said there was an incident with your family. Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. "I'm fine. Just reminded of why I left in the first place. He said they shut you out of your own hotel." Kimberly's voice held barely contained outrage. "What do you want to do? Say the word and I can have their reservations cancelled." The thought was tempting, but as the initial hurt subsided, a different plan began to form in my mind. "No," I said slowly. "Don't cancel anything. In fact, I want you to call a meeting with the senior staff at the Luxe for tomorrow morning. I think it's time for the owner to make a surprise inspection." "Ashley Thompson, I know that tone," Kimberly said, a smile in her voice. "You're plotting something. Let's just say my family wanted to exclude me from their celebration. I think it's only fair they learn exactly who they're excluding." As I hung up, I walked to my closet and pulled out the garment bag containing the designer outfit I had originally considered wearing to the reunion. I had opted for simplicity to avoid judgment, to blend in, to not rock the boat. No more hiding. No more downplaying my success. It was time my family learned exactly who I had become, and I would make sure the revelation was unforgettable. I arrived at the Luxe at 7 a.m. the next morning, entering through the private owner's entrance and taking the service elevator to the administrative offices. I was dressed in a Chanel suit that cost more than my father's monthly mortgage payment, my confidence armor-plated and ready for battle. Gregory Mills, the general manager I had personally hired 3 years ago, was waiting with a concerned expression. "Ashley, I just heard about yesterday. I'm so sorry if I had been here." "It's not your fault, Gregory," I assured him. "Actually, it might be the wake-up call I needed." The conference room filled quickly with the hotel's senior staff, department heads, the executive chef, the events coordinator, and David, the front desk manager who had witnessed yesterday's debacle. Many looked worried, perhaps fearing some kind of reprimand. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," I began. "As some of you may have heard, I had an interesting experience in our lobby yesterday." Gregory cleared his throat. "The Thompson party. Your family." "Yes. The family that doesn't know I own the hotel they're currently enjoying." I smiled, and a few nervous chuckles broke the tension. "I want to be clear, none of you did anything wrong. In fact, David handled an awkward situation perfectly." David looked relieved. "I wasn't sure if I should have said something. You followed my signal exactly as we've arranged for when I visit incognito. But now I'd like to try something different." I placed my hands on the conference table, leaning forward slightly. "I'd like to conduct a special kind of service experiment with the Thompson party." The staff exchanged curious glances. "Nothing that violates our service standards," I clarified. "Just a series of coincidental issues that might make their stay memorable in ways they weren't expecting." Gregory's eyes widened slightly. "What exactly did you have in mind?" I outlined my plan. A series of minor inconveniences and revelations that would gradually make my family aware of just who they were dealing with. Nothing malicious, nothing that would damage the hotel's reputation, but enough to make my point. First, I'd like to book myself into the Imperial Suite. The Imperial was adjacent to the presidential suite my parents occupied. Under my pseudonym Alexandra Everett. I often used this name when testing our properties incognito. "I'll need access to observe the Thompson party's movements," I continued. "Their dinner reservations, spa appointments, everything." Linda, our events coordinator, raised her hand. "They've booked the Crystal Ballroom for tonight's anniversary dinner. 40 guests, premium package." "Perfect." I'd like you to upgrade them to the diamond package, champagne tower, ice sculpture, the works. Compliments of the management, of course. Are you attending the dinner? Gregory asked carefully. Not initially. But I will make an appearance. I smiled. A rather dramatic one, if all goes according to plan. For the next hour, we fine-tuned the details. Room service would be meticulously perfect for most of the party but consistently just slightly off for my brother's room, water not quite cold enough, toast slightly burnt, small inconveniences that wouldn't warrant complaints but would irritate. The housekeeping schedule for my parents' suite would be adjusted to arrive precisely when they were trying to nap. And the spa would somehow lose just my mother's appointment while accommodating everyone else. Remember, nothing overtly unprofessional, I emphasized. Just the kind of coincidences that make one question if the universe has a sense of humor. As the meeting concluded, I noticed my staff's expressions had transformed from concern to something like admiration. I had always maintained a reputation for fairness and professionalism. This glimpse of my personal vulnerability and my controlled response to it seemed to have deepened their loyalty rather than diminished it. One last thing, I said. I'd appreciate your discretion. The staff should not be aware of my connection to the Thompson party, nor of these special arrangements. After the meeting, I checked into the Imperial Suite under my Alexandra Everett identity. The suite offered a perfect observation point. Its balcony overlooked the hotel's courtyard garden where many guests gathered for afternoon cocktails, and its location provided easy access to the main function rooms. From my vantage point, I watched as my family trickled into the garden for lunch. They were laughing, taking photos, enjoying the luxury that my vision had created. I felt a twinge of something, not quite jealousy, not quite resentment, but a complicated emotion that reminded me of all I had missed by cutting ties. Birthdays, holidays, ordinary family moments. But then I remembered why I had left, and the emotion hardened into resolve. I ordered lunch to my suite and reviewed the dossier Kimberly had prepared on my family's current lives. Ethan had indeed risen in the corporate world, now a vice president at a financial services firm. My father had taken early retirement from his company, and my mother had thrown herself into charity work, the same kind of performative philanthropy she had always favored, more about being seen than making impact. What struck me most was how predictable their paths had been. They had followed exactly the trajectories they had planned, achieving exactly the conventional success they had always valued. There was something almost sad about it, the lack of surprises, the absence of risk or reinvention. In the afternoon, I donned a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses and positioned myself in the garden with a book, close enough to overhear my extended family's conversations. What I heard confirmed my worst suspicions. "Have you seen Ashley yet?" my cousin Jessica asked my Aunt Patricia. "Just briefly yesterday." Still the same, no sense of style, no direction. "Ethan says she's been working in hotels but can't seem to hold a job long." "Such a shame." "I heard she couldn't even afford to stay here," my uncle whispered. "James and Diana offered to help, but you know how stubborn she is." My blood boiled at the blatant lies. They were rewriting history in real time, casting themselves as the concerned, generous family and me as the ungrateful failure. But the worst came when I overheard Ethan speaking to our father at the bar. "I only invited her because I thought she might have grown up a bit," he said, swirling his scotch. "The investors I'm courting at Parker Financial have a lot of hospitality holdings. I thought maybe I could throw her a bone, see if they need someone with her limited experience." "That's generous of you, son," my father replied. "Though I worry she'd squander the opportunity. She never could stick with anything." "Well, I was going to suggest she apply for an entry-level position. Maybe as a maid here at the Luxe. It might teach her some responsibility." They laughed, and I gripped my book so hard the pages crumpled. They had invited me not out of love or genuine desire for reconciliation, but to parade their success and offer patronizing help that would only reinforce their superiority. Ethan had specifically wanted to suggest I become a maid in my own hotel. I retreated to my suite, a new clarity crystallizing within me. This wasn't about seeking their approval anymore. This was about standing in my truth and refusing to let them diminish me ever again. I called Kimberly. Change of plans. I need you to bring the ownership documentation for Phoenix Hospitality Group and Luxe Hotels. The formal certificates, the acquisition papers, everything. The whole package? Are you sure? Absolutely. And contact my stylist. For tonight's dinner, I want to make a statement they'll never forget. As I hung up, I walked to the window and looked out at the New York skyline. 7 years ago, I had fled Boston with nothing but determination and my grandmother's belief in me. Tonight, I would return to my family not as the failure they expected, but as the woman I had become, powerful, successful, and finally ready to be seen. Watch me, Grandma Evelyn, I whispered to the sky. Tonight, I build the final rung of that ladder. The crystal ballroom gleamed under thousands of lights that sparkled off the custom chandeliers I had commissioned during the hotel's renovation. From my position just outside the main doors, I could see my family gathered for the anniversary celebration. My parents at the center table, receiving congratulations and gifts, my brother working the room like a politician, cousins and aunts and uncles exclaiming over the champagne tower and ice sculpture I had anonymously provided. My stylist had outdone himself. I wore a fitted midnight blue gown with subtle Art Deco beading that echoed the hotel's design aesthetic. My hair was swept up elegantly, and I wore Grandma Evelyn's pearls, the only item of hers I had besides her final gift. I looked like what I was, successful, powerful, completely in control. I took a deep breath and nodded to the maitre d', who opened the ballroom doors. The announcement of a new arrival made a few heads turn, but most guests remained absorbed in their conversations. I moved through the crowd slowly, watching recognition dawn on faces one by one. My cousin Heather saw me first, her mouth forming a small O of surprise. Then Jessica, whose eyes widened as she took in my transformation. A ripple of awareness spread through the room until finally, my mother looked up from her conversation. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize me. Then her eyes narrowed slightly, taking in my appearance with the critical assessment I remembered from childhood. But there was something new there too, confusion, perhaps even a flicker of insecurity. Ashley, she said, her voice carrying in the sudden lull of conversation. You decided to join us after all. I smiled, the practiced smile of someone completely at ease in luxury surroundings. I wouldn't miss it. Happy anniversary, Mom. Dad. My father stood awkwardly, clearly unsure how to reconcile the daughter who had been dismissed from the lobby yesterday with the sophisticated woman before him. You look different, he managed. 7 years will do that, I replied smoothly. Ethan approached, champagne in hand, his expression calculating. Quite an entrance, he said. Nice dress. Rental? Some things never changed. I met his gaze directly. No, Ethan. Not a rental. Before he could respond, the event coordinator appeared at my elbow. Ms. Everett, is everything to your satisfaction? The chef wanted to know if you'd like to make any changes to the menu you approved. I noticed Ethan's confusion at the name and the deference. Everything is perfect, Linda. Please give the chef my compliments. Of course. And Gregory wanted to confirm you'll still want the special presentation after the main course? Yes, please proceed as planned. As Linda departed, Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. Everett? Do you use a different name now? Sometimes, I replied vaguely, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server who gave me a subtle nod of recognition. My mother joined us, her social smile firmly in place though her eyes were wary. We were surprised when you didn't return for last night's welcome dinner. Where are you staying, dear? Here at the Luxe, I said. The Imperial Suite. My father, who had followed my mother, nearly choked on his drink. The Imperial? That's even more expensive than our presidential suite. Is it? I asked innocently. I hadn't noticed. Their faces registered the same thought simultaneously, either I was lying or I had come into money somehow. I could almost see them recalculating their approach. "You should have told us you were doing so well," my mother said, her tone suggesting she didn't quite believe it. "What exactly are you doing these days? Still in hospitality?" "You could say that." Before I could elaborate, dinner was announced. I found myself seated at the family table, directly across from my parents and next to a second cousin who kept stealing glances at me as if I were a puzzle he couldn't solve. Throughout the first courses, I fielded questions with vague responses that revealed nothing while suggesting everything. Yes, I was still in New York. Yes, business was good. No, I hadn't married. The subtle shift in my family's treatment was fascinating to observe: the increasing deference, the careful probing, the recalibration of their assessment. Ethan, seated to my mother's right, watched me with narrowed eyes. During the fish course, he leaned forward. "I have to say, Ashley, whatever you're doing must be paying well. That watch you're wearing costs more than my first car." "Your first car was a used Honda, Ethan." "That's not saying much," I replied with a smile, drawing laughs from around the table. He flushed slightly. "Well, I was just about to announce some news, but it seems like you might have some success to share as well." "Please, don't let me interrupt," I said, gesturing for him to continue. He stood, tapping his glass for attention. "Everyone, I have an exciting announcement. Parker Financial has just named me their new Chief Strategy Officer." Applause rippled through the room. "It's a significant promotion, and I'll be building a new team to expand our hospitality investment division." My mother beamed up at him. "We're so proud of you, Ethan." "Always knew you'd reach the top," my father added. Ethan nodded in acknowledgement, then turned to me with what appeared to be generosity but felt like condescension. "Actually, Ashley, this could be an opportunity for you. With your experience in hotels, you might qualify for one of the entry-level positions on my team. I'd be happy to put in a good word." The table fell silent, all eyes shifting between us. The offer was carefully crafted to appear generous while reminding everyone of my perceived lower status. Classic Ethan. Before I could respond, the maitre d' approached our table. "Pardon the interruption, but the general manager would like to speak with Ms. Thompson regarding the special anniversary arrangements." My mother frowned. "Why would the manager need to speak with Ashley about our arrangements? Ethan handled everything." I stood smoothly. "I'll go see what this is about." In the hallway outside, Gregory waited with a portfolio tucked under his arm. "Everything is ready. The staff has been briefed, and the documentation is all here." He handed me the leather portfolio. "Are you sure about this?" I took a deep breath. "Absolutely. It's time." When I returned to the ballroom, dessert was being served, the elaborate cake I had secretly upgraded from the standard offering to a custom creation from New York's most exclusive pastry chef. I resumed my seat, placing the portfolio beside my plate. As coffee was poured, Ethan continued where he had left off. "As I was saying, Ashley, I could arrange an interview. Starting positions at Parker Financial are competitive, but your family connection would help offset your unconventional career path." Several relatives nodded approvingly at Ethan's generosity. I took a sip of water, then set the glass down deliberately. "That's very thoughtful, Ethan, but I'm afraid I'm not looking for a position at the moment." "Oh?" My mother raised an eyebrow. "Are you between jobs again?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm quite satisfied with my current role." "And what exactly is that role?" my father asked, his tone suggesting he expected something unimpressive. I paused, looking around the table at the family that had dismissed me for so long. This was the moment I had been building toward. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and confident, "I own this hotel." A beat of silence, then nervous laughter rippled around the table. "Very funny, Ashley," Ethan said dismissively. "Always the joker." "I'm not joking," I replied, opening the portfolio and sliding several documents onto the table. "I own the Luxe Hotel Manhattan. In fact, I own all 20 Luxe properties across the country." My father picked up the nearest document. The acquisition papers for Phoenix Hospitality Group's purchase of Luxe chain hotels, with my signature clearly visible at the bottom. This can't be right," he stammered. I turned to my mother, whose face had gone pale. "Remember when Grandma Evelyn left me $50,000 and you all said I'd wasted on harebrained schemes? That was the seed money for my first hotel." I gestured around us. "This is what grew from it." The silence that fell over the table was absolute. I signaled to Gregory, who had been waiting by the door. He approached and stood respectfully at my side. "Mr. Mills is the general manager of the Luxe Manhattan," I explained. "Gregory, would you mind clarifying my position for my family?" Gregory nodded professionally. "Ms. Thompson is the founder and CEO of Phoenix Hospitality Group, which acquired Luxe Hotels 3 years ago. She personally oversees all major operations and design decisions for our properties. The recent renovations that have received such acclaim in the industry press were entirely her vision." My brother's face had transformed from disbelief to shock. "But, the reservations were made through my connections at work." "Your firm has a corporate account with us," I acknowledged. "But I assure you, no special strings were pulled. You're here as a regular guest." "Why didn't you say anything yesterday?" my mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "When they said there was no room for you." "There was never an issue with the room," I said. "That was arranged at my request. I wanted to see how you would treat me when you thought I was still struggling." The implication hung in the air, and my family exchanged uncomfortable glances, remembering how quickly they had dismissed me. "So yesterday, when my father began. "When you shut me out of my own hotel?" I finished for him. "Yes, that actually happened." Ethan's face had taken on an interesting shade of red. "If this is some elaborate prank..." I cut him off by nodding to the maitre d', who dimmed the lights. A projection screen descended from the ceiling, and a video began to play, a promotional piece about the Luxe transformation that had been featured in a hospitality documentary. There I was on screen, being interviewed in my office, discussing my vision for the brand, accepting industry awards, clearly identified as the owner and CEO. As the lights came back up, I surveyed the table. My family sat in stunned silence, processing the irrefutable evidence that the daughter they had dismissed as a failure had become more successful than any of them could have imagined. "So," I said, picking up my coffee cup casually, "about that entry-level position, Ethan. I think I'll pass." After the shock of my revelation wore off, the ballroom erupted into chaotic conversation. Distant relatives who had barely acknowledged me earlier now hovered nearby, waiting for an opportunity to speak with me. My phone number was suddenly in high demand. Even Jessica, who had spread rumors about my failures for years, was attempting to position herself as my longtime supporter. I excused myself from the table, needing a moment of space. As I stepped onto the ballroom's private terrace, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to find my parents and Ethan following, their expressions a comple. "No, she saw my potential when you were too busy focusing on my limitations." I walked to the small bar in the corner and poured myself a glass of water. "Do you know what she told me before she died? That her biggest regret was letting others define her capabilities. She didn't want that for me." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Well, clearly you've done very well for yourself. We're proud of you, of course." "Now you're proud," I noted. "Now that I've built something even you can't diminish." "That's not fair, Ashley," my mother protested. "We've always supported you." "Have you?" I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder of saved emails and texts. "Let me refresh your memory." For the next 20 minutes, I methodically presented evidence of their dismissal and discouragement. The email my father sent when I announced my first business venture: "This fantasy needs to end before you waste any more time." The text from Ethan when I moved to New York: "Countdown to Ashley's return with her tail between her legs, T-6 months." My mother's voicemail after I missed a family holiday because I was working. "Some ridiculous hotel job is more important than family? Your priorities are completely backwards." As I closed the laptop, the room fell silent. I saved every message, every dismissive comment, every prediction of my failure, I said quietly. Not out of bitterness, but as fuel. Every time I faced a setback, every time I doubted myself, I would read them and think, I will not let them be right about me. My father looked genuinely shocked. We never meant to hurt you. Intentions don't change impact, I replied. You taught me from childhood that I wasn't enough, not smart enough, not practical enough, not serious enough. It took me years of therapy to unlearn those lessons. Ethan's defensiveness finally broke. Fine, we underestimated you. Clearly, we were wrong. Is that what you want to hear? That you proved us wrong? I shook my head. This isn't about winning some argument, Ethan. It's about 7 years of my life that I spent building something extraordinary while believing my own family wouldn't care unless I failed. From my briefcase, I withdrew an envelope and placed it on the table. This is the last letter Grandma Evelyn wrote to me before she died. I've never shown it to anyone. My mother reached for it hesitantly. As she read aloud, her voice grew increasingly unsteady. My dearest Ashley. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. But I want you to know that I see in you what your parents cannot yet see, a brilliant, determined young woman with the vision and courage to build something meaningful. They love you, but they are limited by their own fears and definitions of success. Don't let their limitations become yours. The money I'm leaving you isn't much, but it's seed for whatever you choose to grow. Your grandfather and I started with less and built a good life. You'll build something even greater, I have no doubt. When you stand in the success I know you'll achieve, remember this, true victory isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right. All my love. Grandma Evelyn. My mother's hands trembled as she set down the letter. Tears had formed in her eyes, something I had rarely seen in my childhood. She never told us she believed in you so strongly, my father said quietly. Would you have listened if she had? I asked. No one answered, which was answer enough. The door opened, and several of my cousins and aunts tried to enter, their expressions eager. Ashley, we were wondering if we could talk to you about. Not now, my father said firmly, surprising me with his protective tone. This is a private family discussion. After they reluctantly departed, Ethan leaned forward. Look, Ashley, what's done is done. We were wrong about you, clearly. But we're family. Surely we can move forward from here. In fact, a partnership between Parker Financial and your hotel group could be mutually beneficial. I almost laughed at his pivot to business opportunity. Always the strategist, aren't you, Ethan? I'm serious. Your hotels with our financial backing? We could double your empire. My hotels are doing quite well without Parker Financial's backing, I replied. But thank you for the offer. My mother wiped her eyes and straightened her posture, attempting to regain her composure. Your father and I would just like another chance, Ashley. We've missed so much of your life. By choice, I reminded her. My phone number never changed. My email has always been the same. We thought you were avoiding us because you were struggling, my father admitted. Pride is a family trait, after all. For the first time, I saw genuine regret in his expression. Not just embarrassment at being wrong, but true remorse for the relationship that had been lost. The conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. My cousin Michael entered, looking uncomfortable. Sorry to interrupt, but Aunt Louise is telling everyone she was your primary investor, and Uncle Herbert is passing out business cards saying he's a consultant for your company. He grimaced. I thought you should know. After he left, I shook my head with a rueful smile. Some things never change. They're opportunists, my father said dismissively. We're not all like that. Aren't you? I asked quietly. When you thought I was struggling, you were ready to suggest I work as a maid in my own hotel. Now that you know I'm successful, you're proud parents who always believed in me. That seems opportunistic to me. My words landed like physical blows. My mother flinched, and my father looked away. Ethan stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're making efforts here, Ashley. What exactly do you want from us? Groveling? Public apologies? Or are you just enjoying making us squirm? I considered his question seriously. What did I want from this confrontation? Validation? Revenge? Neither felt right. I want acknowledgement, I said finally. Not just of my success, but of the fact that you were wrong about me in fundamental ways. I want you to understand that your lack of faith hurt me deeply. And I want any future relationship we might have to be based on who I actually am, not who you think I should be. For several long moments, no one spoke. Then my father cleared his throat. You're right, he said simply. We were wrong about you, Ashley. Not just about your business acumen, but about who you are as a person. We underestimated your determination, your vision, and your strength. And I'm sorry for that. My mother nodded slowly. I always thought I was protecting you by lowering your expectations. I was wrong. You've achieved more by ignoring my advice than I ever did by following my own. Even Ethan seemed humbled. I was jealous, he admitted reluctantly. Grandma always had a special bond with you. And you had this fearlessness that I never possessed. It was easier to dismiss your dreams than to acknowledge you might have something I didn't. Their words weren't perfect, and years of hurt couldn't be erased in a single conversation. But it was a start, perhaps the first honest exchange we'd ever had as a family. As I stood to leave, my father asked, "Where do we go from here, Ashley?" I paused at the door. I don't know yet. But for the first time, I'm open to finding out. 6 months after that fateful anniversary weekend, I stood in the lobby of the Luxe Manhattan, looking up at the newly installed portrait of Grandma Evelyn. She gazed out with the same gentle confidence I remembered, her eyes seeming to follow me with approval. She would have loved this, a voice said behind me. I turned to see my father, looking older but somehow lighter than he had at the anniversary dinner. The months since our confrontation had brought cautious, incremental changes to our relationship. Weekly phone calls. Occasional dinners. Small steps toward understanding. The plaque looks good, he noted, gesturing to the bronze plate beneath the portrait that read, Evelyn Thompson Heritage Hall, in honor of the woman who taught us to build our own ladders. It's official as of today, I said. All 20 Luxe properties have been rebranded as Thompson Heritage Hotels. My father nodded, pride evident in his expression, not the possessive pride he had once shown toward Ethan's achievements, but a different kind, tinged with respect for something he hadn't created or controlled. Your mother wanted to be here for the ceremony, he said. But her flight was delayed. It's okay. We'll do something when she arrives. The fact that my mother was making the trip at all represented significant progress. We walked together through the lobby toward my office, passing Ethan at the reception desk. He was engaged in conversation with Gregory, his expression intent as he took notes. The junior management position I'd offered him 3 months ago had come as a shock to everyone, including Ethan himself. After his initial indignation, he had surprised me by accepting. I want to learn the business properly, he had said. From the ground up, like you did. Now he was starting his 4th week in operations management, working longer hours than he ever had at Parker Financial, and showing unexpected aptitude for the hospitality industry. He's doing well, I told my father as we continued walking. Gregory says he has a natural talent for guest relations. My father smiled. He's always been good with people. Just needed to find the right application for it, I suppose. In my office, I checked the final preparations for today's announcement. The Evelyn Thompson Scholarship Foundation would be officially launched this afternoon, a $20 million endowment to support young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. The foundation's first 20 recipients were already selected, their futures now bright with possibility. My assistant knocked and entered with a stack of RSVPs for the launch event. Your cousin Caroline confirmed she can make it, she reported. Caroline had been the only family member to defend me during that disastrous first night at the hotel. Her quiet support had not gone unnoticed, and the marketing director position I'd offered her 2 months ago had been based on genuine talent, not family obligation. As my father examined the portrait of Grandma Evelyn I kept in my office, his expression grew contemplative. "You know, your grandmother once told me something I didn't understand at the time," he said. "She said that true wealth isn't what you accumulate, but what you enable others to build." I think I'm finally beginning to understand what she meant. I nodded, thinking of the scholarship recipients, of the 5,000 employees across the Thompson heritage chain, of the communities impacted by our sustainability initiatives. "She also told me once that forgiveness isn't about erasing the past," I replied. "It's about creating space for a different future." My father met my gaze, understanding the olive branch I was extending. "Are we creating that space, Ashley?" "I think we're trying," I said honestly. "And that's more than I thought possible 6 months ago." My phone buzzed with a message from the event coordinator. Guests were beginning to arrive for the foundation launch. It was time. As we prepared to leave my office, I paused at the window overlooking Manhattan. The same skyline Grandma Evelyn had once pointed to from her small apartment, telling a 12-year-old girl with big dreams, "Someday, Ashley, you'll make your mark on that horizon." I had done exactly that, creating success beyond even my own ambitious visions. But standing there with my father, I realized that the true victory wasn't in the buildings I owned or the empire I had built. It was in finally being seen, truly seen, for who I was. That rainy night when my family had shut me out of my own hotel had been painful, but it had led to this moment of truth and potential reconciliation. Sometimes you have to be excluded from someone else's story before you can fully write your own. I turned from the window to my father. "Ready?" He nodded, and together we walked toward the future neither of us had imagined possible, one built not on expectations or obligations, but on the foundation of mutual respect that had been missing for so long. As Grandma Evelyn had written in her final letter, true victory isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right. I had done both. And now, standing in the success she had always believed I would achieve, I was finally ready to share it on my terms, as the woman I had become. The rain had cleared, and sunshine streamed through the windows of my hotel, a perfect day for new beginnings. What would you do if you were in my position? Would you have revealed your success dramatically like I did, or would you have taken a different approach with your family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want to hear more stories about family dynamics, success against the odds, and sweet, sweet karma. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the people who believe in you the least help you achieve the most.